executive session, and we appointed our three professionals for this year. April Steffel as Commission Secretary, Martin Ross as Historic Preservation Consultant, and Ruben Perez as Board Attorney, same as last year. Okay, we can get into the regular meeting now. And the first item is presentation of meeting minutes. We've got two sets of them, November 24th and December 22nd of 2020. Is there any question or comment about the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt them? Some of you need to unmute yourselves. Gary, Mario, Sandy.
Yep.
Okay.
I motion to accept the minutes as stated. As read.
Second.
Okay, Gail, second. All in favor?
Aye.
One opposed. Okay, good. One matter on our agenda is not going forward tonight. It's the former YMCA at 512 Watchung Avenue. The architect has simply not given us the revised material yet, so I think we will carry that until next month, and before then we should know what's going on.
Yeah, could I say something here? It sounded from the report I read in the newspaper that the planning board has kind of jumped ahead and approved stuff that we were still talking about.
Yes and no. I noticed it when it was on the planning board agenda for, I don't know, I guess it was last month. But that was just to determine whether whether it should be a redevelopment agent area. That was to modify the redevelopment plan for the Second Avenue, Cleveland Avenue, Arts District. There may have change of individuals that are involved with the applicant's structure. So I don't think that's anything like jumping ahead of them. But I'll be on the lookout. If that begins to happen, I'll try to stop it. So anyway, that's not going forward.
Bill?
Yeah.
I received a call late this afternoon, about 5 minutes of 5, from this applicant's attorney. And she called to say that she wasn't going to be at the meeting, and I said yes, because you didn't submit plans. And I don't understand what it is they don't understand. We had gone over with it. I recall 15 items off the top of my head what was requested. And she goes, well, I don't think the architect understands. And I said, well, in the 60 days that he hasn't understood, is there any reason why he didn't call the preservation consultant who could clear this up? And she said, no, she doesn't know why he didn't call Bart. So they're going to try to come on February's meeting.
Well, it's fine with me. I have no reason to question that they've got a competent architect who can proceed with the kinds of things we talked about. Now, whether he's facing trouble with his own client because they don't like some of our determinations and suggestions, I don't know. We'll deal with that if it gets that far. But at any rate, they're not going forward tonight.
Okay, just thought I'd let you know.
April, I don't see anybody from the ENC Bank building.
You're absolutely right. I don't see him here either. He didn't have to be. It states that he doesn't have to show up. So I guess you can move forward in your discussion regarding that project.
I guess we can. All right. This is A 2020-19 because it's a referral from our Zoning Board of Adjustment. Applicant and owner is Landmark Developers. The property is 200 to 212 Park Avenue. which is the old PNC Bank building, and that is before us because it is included in the North Avenue Historic District. They gave us a lot of material that I hope everyone followed, at least broadly. Site plan materials and design and architectural drawings and some specifications. Looks like what they want to do is convert that whole building into a banquet hall. It's a ground floor. It's got two other floors above it, but they are only around the outside of the main part of the building in the middle. And then at the third floor level, they want to construct something new, which actually is something we approved about, I'd say, 10 years ago. A new structure on the roof that will have a sloping top. And in order to do that, they're going to have to clear off the structures that are on the roof now. There's a stairwell and utilities, and I'm assuming the third is an elevator shaft. On the Park Avenue side and on the West 2nd Street side, they don't plan to change anything much. Sandy?
But I suggest that if the Willises are ready and there, maybe we should hear them first.
I was going to do that, but then it looks like this is going to be fairly brief.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than cleaning up the exterior and putting a new sign on it called Bank on Park, with C's, not K's, there doesn't seem to be anything proposed on those two sides. On the west side of the building, which faces the parking lot, and beyond that is Sutphin House, they want to put up a whole new facade because what's there now is old red brick. They want to have a structure which they've labeled as a porte cochere, and beyond that would be parking lots. I happen to notice there was one item missing. There is a small south elevation, and they didn't include it because the part of the building that faces the train tracks, some of it is hidden by the building next door, but some of it is not. So I was going to tell them they need to do something with that one way or the other. It's red brick now, so I guess it should be the same thing they want to do on the west. We don't have any role to play in anything they do on the interior. I checked the zoning. This would have been a permitted use as a restaurant or a tavern. It can be a banquet hall, but that would require a use variance from the zoning board. So we have to tell the zoning board whether we've got an issue with that or not. And beyond that, I'm going to lay this open to the commissioners. Just whatever you want to say to comment on this, please do so. Sandy?
I don't like the awning on the, I think it's the east side, the front. It looks like they've got an awning set up.
The metal roof, yeah.
And I don't like that. It cuts the columns. It just destroys the look of it.
Andy, is that on the east facade?
I think it's the east side, yeah.
Okay, thank
Park
you.
Avenue.
East facade is Park Avenue.
Right, that's where the awning is.
I totally agree with you, Sandy. It's a very modern canopy structure. I assume there's glass on top of those what appear to be aluminum supports.
Yeah, it's sticking out.
Yeah, and I do not like that either because they've done a good job of leaving the classical building alone.
Yeah, except for that.
And I think they could be a little more imaginative and come up with, they need a canopy, come up with something a little better.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the design is that they tried to make that thing look as, transparent and separate from the building. So it's almost like it's the awning that you're not really supposed to look at. It's like, I'm not here. But it's still there, and, it could make even, it's a little brutalist. It really does slash the facade in half.
Mario?
No, I just wanted to just bring up a point, and it's we're seeing these type of designs over and over. So with the YMCA, we're seeing it again. We're seeing panels. When the Y came about, we were, for the most part, completely against these panels. But truth of the matter is, these panels are becoming very, very common. And for most architects and developers, at first glance, what they really believe the course of action should be is to have the perfect blend, right, between the new and the old. Well, these panels become part of that new, and it's a constant. And I just want to get everyone's feel on this, because here's more of the same. This is maybe a little bit different than the Y, but massive panels on one side of the building. Where do we stand? Like, in other words, are we looking for a percentage of the original structure of the building to remain compared to the new, or I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on that specifically, because we're going to keep seeing panels.
We'd be turning them down.
Well,
I don't mind seeing the panels. It's the marrying of the styles that, and sort of the transition of modern to traditional that Mr. Fazzato you called it brutalist, and I think it's absolutely. I think what's lacking is finesse. There's no finesse here. There's no finesse in any of them. Just it's. I mean, I don't mind them. You can use them. You have a brick. You have a brick palette to work with, right? There's a mixture that you can make, and I think, in short, it lacks imagination. You could do a little more work where you can marry them and make that transition to front using the other elements. Just as you don't have to use that brutalist canopy. You want a canopy, yes. You want protection from the elements, yes. There's a way to do that in a classical way that doesn't take away from the front facade. In the rear facade, you could be a little more imaginative than just, I call it paper architecture. You go around three sides, you can slap one side with something, and I did a nice job. No, you didn't do very much thinking when you did that. So anyway, I don't want even, the YMCA is a whole nother conversation, because that's just that's really like I said, I have no doubt that the architect is competent. I think he just needs to be pushed to be a little more creative and a lot more creative in marrying these styles in a transitional form, more transitional form. And that's my take.
Reg, are you commenting just on the west facade, which is largely new? Because I don't really see much being done on the north and east sides.
Right. No, just on this side. That's my thing. Is if you took that away, this could be a totally different building. This doesn't even. It couldn't even be here. It could be this. Could be anywhere. It looks like you just have like anything. I'm going to stick it on. And I'm just saying you can be a little more imaginative. Just this side. I'm also thinking about the canopy as well, but just this side, I think, be a little more imaginative. This could be a hotel,
Well, let's see if we can get a little more specific. What seemed to me on the west side is perhaps to keep a higher percentage of the existing brick than what I'm seeing on this elevation. The other materials they're proposing don't bother me, but I think they could save a little more of what's old and a smaller percentage of what's new.
Yeah, that's a great observation, Bill. I mean, the problem is, this building doesn't even turn a corner between old and new. As Reggie was saying, it's just slammed up against the back of it. And I think if they kept some of the historic brick, it would just help turn the corner on the old building and the new, and then they're intermingled on that facade a little bit, rather than that billboard that they put up there, like hiding. That the elevation is almost hiding the historic building. There's no reference to it. There's just nothing. it's like randomly placed. So I think we should push them on that. And to some degree, I think some of these architects seem to need a little encouragement that it's okay to mimic the historic structure a little bit. It doesn't have to be drastically different.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's a common misconsensus when it comes to historic buildings as to what the expectations of boards like ours are, as to that perfect blend that we're searching for. Right. It's most architects I've spoken to. I mean, you guys are on this board and you know this inside and out, but most architects out there believe that both things we've seen, from the wise, massive back end attachment to the building, where somehow they believe that by keeping the face, even if you change the rest of the body, it'll bring a perfect blend, which is absolute nonsense. But in a case like this is sort of the opposite side to that, right? It's not a massive blend, so to speak. It's in fact the opposite. It's a drastic small portion of the overall building, whereas the rest of the building is being kept almost intact in many ways, right? So to me, in you know, as we go through, I'm sure we'll see more buildings. I'm sure we'll find that perfect blend for Plainfield. But to me, almost like keeping 3 out of the 4 walls intact in many ways, it's actually a positive, right? Like they're trying to preserve this, where they are bringing the modern, perhaps in a little too drastic of a format, and those panels maybe are not the right product for it. But this is it, right? This is an example where historic is really, from a square footage standpoint at least, it's really superseding the new. We don't like the way the new looks, so I think we need to define that. But I think from a numbers standpoint, this is an example of, I believe, most of the historic is being preserved, while new is truly strongly being incorporated. That's it. That's all I got.
Can we get rid of the skylights just on principle?
What? What skylights?
The skylights.
Oh, those sky.
Just on principle.
Now, I do agree with what Mario said. The historic elevations are quite beautifully maintained. It's a pleasure to see that it's so immaculately maintained. But and that deserves some credit.
I had one question about the Park Avenue elevation.
Yeah,
it seems to me there's a little bit of the modern rear facade sneaking out, peeking out from the left side of the Park Avenue elevation. You're looking at the building.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like the moldings or.
No, it's a whole 4-story. What is that?
I think what you're seeing is what I mentioned a little earlier, a partial south facade. Right next to it is the Courier News building. And in the front, it's just about the same height as the bank building. But if you go back just, 20 or 30 feet, the third floor drops off. And so that part of it, the Courier News building, is shorter than this. And I don't see anything on the elevations concerning the south facade. I would go for something similar to what we're going to tell them about the west facade.
But this rendering here, it shows this red brick that is the same as in the back, going from the ground level all the way to the top.
Mm.
So I don't know whether that's set back the length of the building and only shows because it's the back of what's in the rear, or whether that's up on Park Avenue flush with the front of the building. I can't tell that. But anyway, it's jarring. That's part of the back seems to be sneaking up into the front.
Okay. Well, the new structure on the roof has a front, definitely. It's a 4-sided structure. When we dealt with it some years ago, we had to decide whether this was too radical. And I felt it actually might be good. Something a little more sleek and modern than the rest of the building might be good for the prospects of the business that will be in there. And it looks like they've just reused that the same as we approved it. I think it's the same architect that did this like 10 years ago, Jose Carvalho. He was okay.
I don't mind the roof. I like the play if this rendering is correct, that the glass of the slanted roof building will mimic the glass at the front of the bank. And the color seems to be, and it's always hard to tell, but if they keep the color of that rooftop structure similar to the color of the building, the old building, it will minimize it but still make it modern. So I have no problem with that. I do not like the back particularly, but I have to say, in fairness, if you look at what this faces, it faces a huge parking lot, and it faces a parking deck across 2nd Street. The Sutphin House is sitting in there, way back there. But, you know, I'm not so upset with what they might do in the back, although this could be much, much better, because it's really not going to be seen. There's nothing back there. So for me, I keep that in mind. That's all.
Well, it looks like they're keeping the parking lot the same way it is now. It'll need to be repaved and restriped, but it covers all that territory. If you recall, we did a subdivision on this, 3 or 4 years ago, to cut off the most distant part of the parking lot, which is now their drive-in bank facility. The rest of it, though, I think it's actually 3 tax lots remain as part of this project. Well, on the west side, let me ask this. If they keep a larger percentage of the brick than what it shows now, do we have a problem with the rest of the materials? There's anodized aluminum, there's precast concrete, and, you know, in some places we would not like that. Does anybody have thoughts about that now, the materials?
I think the materials are all right as long as they arrange them in a way, like John and Reggie were saying, that give a little more finesse and some intelligent thought into this. Because, I mean, if you take this section, this is just a unit for the residential on Grant and 2nd. It's the same thing. They just all the same facade all the way along. They just have a shorter facade here, but they could do better. And
yeah,
so the materials are okay, but I like the way they're arranged.
Well, it may be a matter of how much to pay the architect if he already has some generic drawings from that other project on Grant Avenue.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How is all this information going to get back to the attorney? Via notes or via the minutes? Is Barton going to...
April, I would request that you put something together from this sound recording that's similar to what you do with our minutes, and I'll go over it very closely to make sure things that I want to say, things that others wanted to say, are clearly in there, and then we can give it to them in written form, not quite like minutes, but a memorandum. And I might have to deliver that to the zoning board because when we do these referrals, I usually wind up appearing there to explain.
Could Barton also participate in this?
Barton,
I'm happy to talk to their architect, April, if you get me in touch with them.
Let's do this, April. Put something together from this. I'll go over it. I'll give it to Barton as well. If you want, I'll send it out to everybody. See if there's any comments or anything that any of you feel isn't quite accurate. And then when we're done, we'll give it to the developer.
Because basically, you know, you guys are starting to get into material lists, and that kind of stuff should almost be when they're having serving notice, or am I mistaken?
No, that's not quite correct. They want to know what we will probably go for before they spend any more money on it. And
Gotcha.
the basic design of the whole west side is an obvious example of that, and the materials to be used on that side. That's exactly what they want to hear about from us, so we're trying to provide it. There's no tremendous rush on this, but if you can do something with it in the next few days, I'll take it from there. And we'll
Okay, now one other thing. It was like you said, anodized aluminum, precast concrete. What was the third material?
Oh gosh, it's some other kind of cement. We can take that off of the plan or off of the elevation when you put it in draft form. Gray fiber cement panels. What else do I see on here? Anodized aluminum frame with low E glazing. I'm just taking those right off of their elevations.
Okay, well, I'll put this thing together maybe tomorrow, get it out for you by close of business Thursday. And any of the architects that made statements, they should also look at this as well, Reggie and John.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'm going to distribute this to the entire group.
Oh, well, I don't mind. I don't care. But those were the ones that made the statements about the facade and the blending and Okay, sure, I'll distribute it to everybody.
And April.
Yeah, I'll let everybody take a crack at it, just in case you're not being quoted right or you think of some detail.
Okay, Larry?
April, just be sure you make clear to them that the canopy design is a no-go.
Hold on, Larry.
And that we need south elevation to explain whatever it is going on that side and what you can see from Park Avenue. The red portion of their Park Avenue front elevation.
Well, the south side is facing the train station, so
The south side faces the train track.
I do want them to fill that in, but it's visible from the tracks, not just from the street.
Yeah.
Everybody that rides through here from Denellen can see it. Mario?
Just a question. Are we, for Larry most, we're opposed to the Portico as a whole or just the design?
The design.
Design.
Obviously, they need something if you're walking in off the street to keep the rain off, whatever.
Well, nobody did before.
As one of the architects said, it's a brutalist design, which is true. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy's point is well taken. No one seemed to mind it when it was a bank.
Well, I would go with no canopy.
I say no canopy. It cuts anything you do. It's going to be strong enough. We'll cut the columns.
If I may, from a practical standpoint, and given that I'm in the downtown a lot, a business like this is quite beneficial for our city. I've ran properly, and Landmark does have a track record on this stuff. Something like a canopy is obviously not something very common in town, and it does bring a degree of higher. It's really used for people to be able to usually valet park their cars, right, or wait for their cars to be brought to them while they get on them or get off of them. So I think it does bring a layer of just overall goodness to the downtown to have. It's almost like a hotel feel, right? Like there are cars that park downstairs, and I'm not too opposed to the canopy. The design, yes. The canopy, no. I think it's
I agree. Let them have the canopy, but make it incentive to really make it something special.
Yeah.
And make it an incentive. You want that canopy? Give us a facade.
Yeah.
Larry?
Two things. Number one, the real entrance to this building is in the back.
Right.
That's no surprise to anybody. There's not a lot of foot traffic or car limousines dropping people off in the front. I understand the theory about the canopy. The other thing is, I totally 110% applaud the use.
Oh, yeah.
And what they're doing, creating a banquet space for Plainfield, which we desperately need, It looks like this is connected to the restaurant, which was approved before. So if we have to comment on the use, I'm 150% in favor of it.
I'm a little concerned whether it's going to be a viable use, but that's not our problem.
It's not our problem.
By the way, this does not require any bulk variances. The only variance I'm aware of that it needs is the use variance, and the current zoning comes very close to what they're talking about, so I don't think that's going to be controversial at all.
Yeah. Can I say two things? Maybe.
Yes.
I agree with Larry. I love the use on this. The canopy, when I see a structure like this, I think of the Ritz over in the city, with a nice canopy that almost goes right out to the street. So I see it more updated, that's more pleasing to the structure itself. If I was the principal on this, though, you got the front of the building, you got the side of the building that's so dramatically strong. And to come up with a rear rendering like this takes away from everything on the front and the side on it. And I would have the architect change this to mirror more of the side and more of the front. The front windows being so grand and 3 stories high, and then in the back they got 1, 2, 3, 4 separate sets of windows on it. It's not dramatic at all. It doesn't match the building at all. And I understand they want to marry the old with the new. But I think if they did that and did the large windows, the full pane 3-story windows, it would look new. It wouldn't look part of the old building itself, but they could structure it as new to blend that better. The windows in the back, I'm totally against. The brick that Larry is talking about in the back version of it, between the two structures, it doesn't do it. It's missing a lot. And Reginald said it really straight. It's just a paper drawing. It has no character at all to it.
So Gary, you're saying that it should carry a little more of what the east and north facades look like, the classical style with the columns? Absolutely.
And if I was the principal, I would force that. I don't understand why he's not. The other question, and that should be carried over to the where they're dropping the cars off. They can make that look a lot better to a drop-off station. The parking was a separate question that I have. Is that parking only going to be for this banquet hall, or are they going to open it up to public parking as well?
No, I don't think they're thinking of public parking. They could rent some of the nearby properties, what we call cross easements. So a few people who work across the street have a place for their car. That would be strictly voluntary on their part, and I bet they'd love to have the income.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
Sorry, just to answer the parking question, I think there's the Union County building is across the street. Modern building, 10-year-old building, so I guess keeping that in mind, there's also a parking deck in there that I believe Union County lets people use past regular people, past non-county employees, past 5 p.m. or on the weekends or something along those lines.
They never have.
I don't know.
That was supposed to be an agreement. They never agreed. They never did it. Yeah. So you can't park there.
Well, big parking deck coming downtown anyway for the next few years. So I don't think.
And even the side of that building of the Union County, you can't park there either along the building.
That parking deck is very much underutilized.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that's our call right now. It might be later. If they want us to approve the site plan. To me, this building may be the keystone building to the North Avenue Historic District, because coming from both the north and the west, it's the first thing you reach. So I think it's well worth it to make them put a little effort into making it as nice as it can be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would encourage other buildings to do that too.
Yeah. I'm going to let the public comment, even though they've had nothing to look at and they're just listening to us so far. Aliqua, can you let the attendees in. I'll just see if anybody wants to raise their hand. Aliqua, let me see if I can get her attention.
Hi.
Yeah. Let the attendees in, please.
Okay, I will allow everyone to talk.
Okay. Members of the public that are listening to this, does anyone wish to be heard or make any comment about what you've been hearing? You'll have that opportunity, obviously, when it comes back for actual approvals. Hearing none. Okay. All right. So the next thing that'll happen is April, generate what you can for me, and we'll take it from there and pass it all around. And we don't need to take any official action right now. Okay, good. Next matter, HPC 20-21-01, Megan and Dave Willis, 909 Madison Avenue. And most of you are muted at the moment. Who wants to tell us about this project? Megan?
Megan, unmute yourself.
Okay, does Megan need to be a panelist like everyone else? Is she testifying or just talking?
It's her project. She is the applicant.
So she's testifying. All right, so give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
I think I would make Megan Willis and Dave Willis and David P. Willis all participants.
Well, you do that. Okay, Megan, you ready to go?
Wait a minute, Bill. I thought she was also going to make Dave P. Willis as well as Dave Willis participants.
It's all right with me.
I don't need to be, thank you.
Okay, well, how about Dave?
Okay.
I made
Megan,
all 3 of them panelists. I disallowed the other people from talking at this point so that there are less things up on the screen so it won't be as confusing as to who's a panelist and who isn't.
Okay. Okay, Megan, name and address for the record, please, and then just summarize what you want to do.
She's got to unmute herself.
Okay, can you hear me?
There you go. Okay, name and address for the record, and just give us a little summary of what you want us to do.
Okay, Megan Willis, 909 Madison Avenue, Plainfield, New Jersey. And I would like to replace my slate roof, tear off only the main roof of the house, install new plywood, and install ice and water shield and 15-pound roofing paper. I'd like to install Camelot 2 shingles and install step flashing, counter flashing, and vent collars, all in copper. The Yankee gutters that I have and the valleys that are all copper will stay on both of the roofs. So I have a warranty on the shingles that I would get, and so although I'm a purist, I have done everything possible for 20 years to try to save my slate roof, and it's coming to its end.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Nobody has any questions.
I do. Hey, Megan.
Hi.
Gary Schneider here. I sympathize with you with the slate roof, and to give it up. I'm sorry I ever did I put the asphalt shingles on the antique. I'm sorry I ever did that. But I get it. You're intending to use the antique slate?
Yes.
Okay, the virtual remodeling on this is really very poor on what I'm seeing here, the Camelot.
I have some sample shingles. It's right here.
Okay, I see that, but the gallery that I'm seeing on top of the virtual remodeling with the antique slate, I'm not seeing the antique slate. What on the gallery shots on it?
Excuse me. Aliqua, could you please let Megan share her screen? Because I believe she has the sample of the shingle with her.
All panelists can share at any time.
Megan, please share your screen.
How do I do that? Oh, wait. Here I do.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a green arrow that says share screen, and if you hit that, it should open what you're looking at.
But you have to have open what you want to share.
I just want to use my camera to change the picture. I don't really need to share my screen.
Okay.
So if you could just make it so you can see me, I'm going to turn
You
my
need to turn on your camera. Your camera is off.
Goodness. Sorry.
There you go.
Oops, there you go back. There you go.
Okay. There are the shingles. Can you see them?
Yeah. Can you go up more so I can see a more downward shot? I'm seeing a slide shot, the side view. There you go.
There you go. Okay, it's a nice product.
Yeah.
Maybe she might want to hold it up. Would you like to see it tipped up a little bit?
I don't think so. I think these are nice. They've got a little more of a shape than most of the shingles we see. It's
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
it's actually octagonal, each
Right.
one of the shingles. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
They're heavy and they seem to be well made. And if you want to really look at it, I really don't have a slate roof anymore. It is nothing but powder.
I've been through that too.
And right now, and I cannot afford to replace a complete slate roof.
Yeah.
And it's starting so that it's destroying some of the structure of my house. And there's just nothing I can do. I was praying for today it wouldn't snow, because now I have snow all in my attic. So
We have not required anybody with slate to replace with slate. If we could, but it wasn't so terribly expensive, maybe, but it's terribly expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from the commission? Hearing none. This is an open public meeting. If anyone else would care to be heard or to ask questions, this is a good time. And I don't see anybody's hands up. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman. With regard to HPC 2021-01, I move we grant a certificate of appropriateness to remove an existing slate roof on the main house located at 909 Madison Avenue and to install an asphalt GAF Camelot 2 series slate-like roof in the quote antique gray close quote color. Counter flashing, step flashing, and vent collars will be made of copper. The existing Yankee gutters and roof valleys shall remain as is.
I second.
I'll second.
Okay, Harry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Megan, I just want to compliment you with the number of photographs and pages of product material you put together for us. It makes it a lot easier to understand what's going on, and some of us saves a trip, going over there and taking a close look at it.
Well,
So,
yeah, I'm doing my best to keep everything looking at its period of time. It's very important to me, and I've been doing what I can with the house. So.
Oh, we know you're loyal to the movement, so that's fine with me. Okay, thank you. You'll get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail probably in about a week, might be a little more. Are you going ahead with the work right away?
As soon as I possibly can, yes. Before we have a snowstorm.
I can.
Well,
and sorry, Bill. If you want, this is one I can probably push up and have a draft for you earlier rather than later.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. I'll just proof it. I'm sure there'll be nothing I have to change, and then we'll go out that much faster. Megan, you can go ahead and either stage the job or order the materials, whatever you need to, because this will just be a matter of a few days. You can go forward.
Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the last of our new cases. Before we go into some discussion items, I'm going to open the floor to any public comment, whether it's about items on tonight's agenda or not. Raise your hand if you want to be heard. Seeing none. Okay, discussion items. Barton, you ready to go? You have to unmute.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so the main discussion item tonight, I sent an email. Unfortunately, I only sent it out right before the meeting with a couple things. So anyone who has their email open maybe can follow along as I'm going to talk. So we need to get our Clg grant in before February 15th. And it's a little tricky this late in the game because we need a resolution from the city council, and obviously we need to actually write up the application. And tonight we just need to decide what project we want to do. So I talked to Bill last week about some ideas, and we wanted to go over that with the whole commission. So there were kind of three main ideas. The first involved, and as you all know, we've already done a bunch of surveys. We've done the Spanish language of the design guidelines. The design guidelines, obviously, that Gail wrote are still in effect and still well done. We did the survey for the expansion projects. So we've kind of done a lot of things. So we're trying to think a little more out of the box what other projects we could apply for. So the first one is, and I sent an example of this that obviously could be beefed up as kind of an addendum to the design guidelines. It would be a sustainability brochure, so kind of explaining to homeowners how to be good stewards and maintain their historic houses. And Bill had some good ideas to kind of add on to that. Also to be good stewards of your sidewalks and your, Belgian block or your hardscape if you have that, and driveways as well. So it's kind of an addendum to the design guidelines with some new things in the 21st century that, April and I hear about from residents and homeowners. Even April, she's constantly explaining to people, how to cut around the roots of the trees and keep your slate in place. And, I'm constantly giving out the slate color, the additive to the concrete, that's actually not in our design guidelines. So we were thinking that possibly doing this addendum, and maybe it's 20 pages or less, would be very helpful. So I sent an example of that around in an email. So that's number one. Number two is Netherwood Heights Historic District is only locally designated. So it is not on the state or national register of historic places. And so I sent the draft that was done, back in the 1980s when it was it was submitted to be a local historic district. So that's a possibility. It's a lot of work, as April knows, to go through in Trenton to get a state national register historic district put through. Obviously, we would include the added properties that we surveyed a couple years back. So it would be the expanded boundaries to do the state national register. And, I'd anticipate it'd be like 100 pages long, at least. It would be a big endeavor. But at least that's a known quantity to us, what the properties are. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is something that always comes up, but it's a little ambiguous. And I don't know if we have time in the game to do this, but obviously in our master plan and elsewhere, we're always talking about updating the 1984 inventory of historic sites around Plainfield. And that's not just historic districts, but obviously other sites around the city that would be individual landmarks. And we identified a lot of these in the preservation plan element that we did last year. However, it would still be work trying to figure out exactly which properties we want to survey. And honestly, this is probably my third choice, just because surveying with the Historic Preservation Office and their GIS requirements on the computer are just really difficult to work with these days. But obviously that's also a project that's been kicked around for many years to try to update that. So anyway, those are the 3 projects that Bill and I discussed and wanted to put to the commissioners to have a discussion on.
Yeah, let me just add a little to this, and then we'll open up to discussion. Clg Grants is something that we are eligible for because we are a certified local government. In other words, running a historic system that meets federal guidelines. And the money is actually from Washington, from the National Park Service, but it's administered by our State Historic Preservation Office, which we call SHPO. We have a very, very good relationship with them, and I hope to keep it that way. The other thing that happened, I walk around my neighborhood all the time, and I am sick and tired of the condition of the sidewalks, and it's certainly no better elsewhere in town. So I actually decided to address the city council about it in their meeting last week, and nobody had any feedback because nobody ever suggested this before. I just wanted to put it on their radar screen. We've got a whole lot of sidewalks in this town that are in great need of repair or replacement. A lot of that could probably be done with grants, and we would have to just help organize it and identify the areas where this work is needed in the historic districts, and then hopefully the administration will go past that and do the other parts of the city as well. It's even more vivid to me now because yesterday I managed to trip on a sidewalk and I may have actually fractured my kneecap. Right now, I don't know yet. What a pleasure to do these meetings from home. And I think it would make sense to include some way of getting at the condition of the sidewalks into a grant. We've been getting grants, I guess, every other year for quite some time now. And it's the on year again. So I think we should make the application. Doesn't hurt. And see what happens. And assuming, Barton, that you would be the consultant that does the work, it is outside of the budget for your position. It would be dealt with as a separate contract. So, comments from anyone else? Larry. Unmute.
Barton, is this a pick one of the 3, or is there a combo that we could apply for?
No, Larry, they really just want one budget. That's really how they work.
Okay. And when you talk about the sustainability brochure, when I hear sustainability, I hear, wood windows versus vinyl, certain kinds of paints as opposed to others. But I thought you were describing something a little broader than that, more of a how to keep your historic house in good shape kind of thing. Am I reading that wrong?
No, you're exactly right. I was thinking of it as more of a stewardship maintenance manual as well. And, Bill was hoping that we could tie that into not just the building components, but also driveways and sidewalk porches. All these things that come up all the time but aren't necessarily directly in our design guidelines at the moment.
I mean, I would favor that one. That's the one I think is most practical.
Yeah, I agree. What's the purpose of doing the state historic register? What are we getting for that? Do we feel like a highway is coming through here anytime soon, or you know what I mean? What's the benefit?
It'll make my property more valuable. Isn't that good enough?
If you get a grant from the government to do something. I agree with Larry. I think it's a win-win-win situation if we provide some assistance, some guidance for people to make them, help them make better decisions with their properties. I think it goes over really well with the public. It's a useful document. I think it's one that we can all contribute to and help out with. I think that's a great idea. By far the best use of the money, and I think by far what they might be most receptive to in terms of approving a grant.
Yeah, and the administration is always happy with it when we do things like that on our own because it doesn't cost them anything, and it brings in some good publicity. Sandy?
I really like the idea, and could we make it as a separate document from the design guidelines, which are huge, and actually print some and make them available to residents of Plainfield? That I think would get us a lot of mileage.
Sandy, printing is sort of passe. I can't tell you. What I'm trying to say to you is the cost of printing them is outrageous. That they were initially charging $10 for the guidelines. Nobody was buying them. We have a PDF. Somebody, I had 4 people last week asking me questions. Send the PDF. Send the PDF. Would you like it in English? Do one in Spanish. Forget about the print. Nobody's going to print. I can get it out to a lot more people in a PDF format than I ever am going to do with a booklet. Booklets are great if you have a meeting. No booklets.
Yeah, we don't have to decide that right now with these legitimate points. April, I have a slightly related favor to ask of you. You have mentioned on occasion that tree roots can sometimes be trimmed in a way that does not kill the tree. And I don't know any more about it than that. For next month, perhaps, would you just put something brief together or just give us something that you've already got?
It's a shaving, Bill, just as a quick thing. When you sever completely through, you weaken the tree. This is a constant, ongoing maintenance item, though. You shave it down, you never sever. And what I did at 935 is I kept shaving down and moving that sidewalk closer to my property, giving, into the property, giving that giant pin oak base of the trunk more room to grow. Yes, I can do that for you.
That would be appreciated. We'll do it as a discussion item next month. Okay, anyone else have comments? Sounds like there's no downside to this. Gary?
Yeah, no, definitely not downside. I took a moment, I was looking for this one book. I can't find it, but it was a short little pamphlet. And it had the styles of homes, Victorians, and all the different homes that Plainfield has. But I'm thinking it was more on the Westfield book. Westfield had done it, but I'm not quite sure. I have to dig it up. because I think you have styles of homes, different homes. People go look at it, saying this is my home, and look at it a little differently than just, a wrong statement, but a blank statement on how to, versus where they can relate to their house and maybe go a little deeper into it. But I love the idea. It's a great idea.
Bill, I have another question for you. Martin, it's difficult to maintain all of the National Register nominations, state register nominations in paper. I can go to the National Park Service, and if you guys would like, I can have Jackie Workman put those up in your section. You can get the one for Van Wyck Brooks. You could get the one for Crescent area. You could do the 2 parks. You could do North Avenue. It might be nice if you put these up on your website so somebody lives there, they can at least look at what everybody here discusses.
Sounds good.
And no one's ever put them up on your website or on the city's website, which floors me.
Great idea.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
Martin,
I got 2 things to do next week.
Yeah. Martin, just begin to put this together. We'll work on it. And what's the deadline for getting it out?
Yeah, I mean, we have like maybe 10 days to really get a good draft. Can I in April, I guess, to review?
I didn't.
I would like to mention one thing.
Yeah, Gail.
When we're talking about this brochure for the residents or anyone else or PDF, can we also include in there, and I know our main goal is to keep the originals as pristine as possible, but we have approved certain materials, like the Anderson Windows 400, certain more modern materials that are more common. Can we also include that in there so that people can have some alternatives that are easier maintenance issues that we have approved?
Wouldn't that be easier in a revision of the guidelines, though, so you don't confuse them back and forth?
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we've occasionally been asked to look at new products, and we sometimes approve them, and then the next time they come up, we'll approve them again. I don't know if anyone's really kept track of what those are. I haven't.
I do. I know what Anderson 400s are. You know what they are, Barton. It's a wood window that's clad. It is a wood window on the...
More than that, brands of shingles, brands of signs, all kinds of things where we've got the right to talk about the product and whether we like it and what is the feature that we're approving. I don't want to make it look like we're endorsing commercial products, but maybe it can be done in a way that helps, gives people some guidance that they don't have now.
That'd be next year's 2022, Barton. You got 2 projects.
Okay, that's great.
So do you want to take a vote, or you don't need to take a vote?
I don't think we need a vote.
Okay.
Anyone want to complain about this? Seeing none.
So you're going with A, which is the addition to the design guidelines, sustainabilities, hardscapes, and sidewalks.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Several other items. First of all, I don't remember if we did this before. We need to form a committee to take a close look at the parts of the Plainfield City Code that apply to us and see where something needs to be updated or changed in some way or expanded. I would just call it the Ordinance Review Committee. Larry and I will certainly do it. Could I have at least one more volunteer? John?
Sure. Oh, well, am I on? Yeah, I am. Sure.
Bill, what did you call it? The Plainfield City Code?
Yeah. Well, it's called the Ordinance Review Committee.
That's what you want to call this?
Yeah. I mean, our ordinance...
Does everybody know where to get the code?
I'll need a little cheat sheet for that.
we can have a little meeting to get into
Yeah.
that.
The first agenda item.
Simply stated, there is a section of the city code, it's Title 17, which is the land use ordinance, and it includes all sorts of stuff that regulates development and how our boards operate. And we do 17:10, which describes everything this commission does, and 17:4, which is about the organization of the commission. And I've already got ideas of something that I think needs review. And it's something that's done every, 5 years maybe on the citywide level. So this is the year to just get a few of these things put together. And they merit some discussion, but I'll make sure anyone that's involved with this has access. On the city website, if you go into city government, there's a link right in there to the city code. And all except Chapter 17 really has nothing to do with us. But those I deal with them every day. Okay, anyone else feel like doing it besides me, Larry, and John?
So I just wanted to a very quick point. It's probably something you've already thought of. Is that for the purposes of the committee, it should be less than a quorum to avoid any issues with the Open Public Meetings Act.
Not a problem. I think 3 people is less than. Was it 5 or more? I think is where the statute kicks in. So we're not even close to that. But it's right. You're right to raise it. Okay. Next topic: the historic district expansion. All I can tell you is that from time to time, I raise it to Bill Neerstedt and Valerie and Ron Scott Bay, and everybody says, "Yeah, we got to get going with that," and somehow it never happens. But it will, and I'm going to just have to be more of a nuisance to them than I have been. And I don't think this commission has to do anything beyond what we did when we were working on this 2 years ago. So it's just one of those things, getting people's attention long enough to get it done. Next, the Hillside and Prospect Avenue intersection case about the steps. This got interesting. Last Thursday, the mayor decided to meet with a few of the neighborhood people and asked me to come, and asked Drew DeSessa, our engineer, and Orrin Dabney, who's Director of Public Works, and Valerie Jackson, who's Director of Economic Development. And Valerie couldn't come, so Bill Neerstedt came. And we went over there and looked at it. The good news is the mayor was very supportive. He said he doesn't have an opinion per se what should happen with the steps, but he wanted to know what are the factors and what's the issue. And we told him. Now at that point, Drew, I guess, was feeling a little bit criticized because it's been said to him that he could have put in a stronger application when he gave the Department of Transportation an application to exempt those steps about 4 months ago. And suffice it to say, he has put something together that's a little more assertive. And it just went into the DOT yesterday. The part I liked about it, I didn't get the slightest feeling that the mayor is concerned that historic preservation is getting inconvenient or is getting in the way or this commission is somehow holding up progress. Nothing like that whatsoever. He just told them that he has to rely on, quote, trusted professionals, and pointed at Drew and me at that moment. Good time to yawn. So that's coming up again Friday. The Historic Sites Council started hearing our case about 6 weeks ago and then ran out of time that day. So we're finishing it up Friday morning. And once again, several of the neighborhood people will probably be on the call. Actually, it's open to anybody that is interested in it.
Bill, can you send that out? The phone one, not the GoToMeeting one? Can you send that email?
Of how to get to the historic sites meeting?
Yes.
I can look for it, yeah.
I have it, but I mean, I don't know if anybody on the commission wants it so they could listen to it.
I'd say send it out to everybody. Probably.
Yeah, I got to find it.
Yeah, I'll look for it too. We'll talk tomorrow. Anyway, the rest of what's going to happen with that is really nothing I can tell you that's any different than I reported last time. It's in the works, and it's an interesting question. Okay, I think that's all that I have. Does anybody else have topics to bring up at this time? Hearing none.
No, I was raising.
Harry.
Couldn't get my mic off. What's going on with the 9th Street project with all those buildings that's going on with it? I can tell you, I'm getting heat and talking about what do we do about it. That's a hot conversation.
Thank you for bringing that up. I don't remember how much I said about this last time. The application is just about ready to go, where the partnership that owns that property will build either 2 or 3 structures. We favor 2, which would have about a total of 20 apartments. That may be too much. And off-street parking. And they're going to have to make it compatible with that whole block front, because 3 blocks of East 9th Street is all very consistent, somewhat blocky, squarish buildings. And that, I've met with them. Larry, I think, was with me last time I met with them. And I expected them to file the application by now, but it hasn't been done. What I did find, it was on the planning board agenda last time, whether that little property should be declared as an area in need of redevelopment. And I'm suspicious of that. The purpose of it is to give an applicant more flexibility in putting a plan together and getting a certain amount of relief from zoning and from other regulation. But there's a flip side to that coin. I don't want the Economic Development Department to just bypass this commission and approve something in the guise of a redevelopment plan. So I made that known to the planning board. It's going to probably come up to City Council in maybe a couple of months, and at that point I think we'll have to talk to them as well. We haven't gotten to a point yet where there's anything for them to complain about our role in this. The other item besides the size of the buildings that would be somewhat of an issue, they want to have adequate off-street parking, but they want a variance from the number of parking spaces, which under ordinance is 1.5 per dwelling unit. Keep giving them some relief on that, but that is not ready to be done yet. I would need the site plan, the engineering drawings to take a look at. So I'm going to keep this commission in the loop on it, and I just hope they keep me in the loop on it. But, I read their agenda, and every time there's a city council meeting, I read their agenda. I've been coming up with things from time to time that probably should have been presented to us at the outset. And then, better late than never. So nothing has quite gotten away from us yet. But yeah, we have to keep an eye on that. It needs to be a design that's compatible with the present area district. And it also, we have to give some incentive to the owners, or else, if they can't make some money off of it, it'll never get done, and it'll continue to be a big empty lot for another 40 years.
Park.
Yeah.
One makes an area redevelopment zone in a historical district. I can think of go west. There's a lot more redevelopment areas that could go on, but I see no need why that Crescent area, 9th Street area, has to be in a redevelopment zone.
Like I said, the suspicion I have is that they're trying to bypass us, and we're not even on record yet saying anything that should bother them. It is a process where the council asks the planning board to determine, is this property in need of redevelopment? That is code language, meaning is it appropriate to give some relief from the regular regulations? And then if the planning board says yes, which they almost always do, it goes back to city council, and if they adopt it, it's like a rezoning right then and there. The zoning becomes irrelevant, and it's whatever the details were that are put in the redevelopment plan. So I'm very suspicious of that, and I keep an eye on it. That's all we do.
Well, isn't that like, just, I'm asking you a question because it looks to me like it's spot zoning.
Well, that's the question I raised with the Wawa. If it happened in Crescent, it probably wouldn't be, but there's a doctrine in New Jersey of planning law called spot zoning. You can't just rezone a property in a way that ignores everything else around it. That would be considered inconsistent with the municipal land use law. Well, on the other hand, in some places, if you're trying to interest the developer and the only way you're ever going to get built there is to change a couple of the details, I'd say it's a very valuable tool. The current administration, I think, has gone a little too far with the redevelopment areas. And it lays us open to a lawsuit. If somebody that, like the owners of 7-Eleven, if they ever file suit against the city that putting the Wawa around them was spot zoning, then that'll be the issue for the court. How do you square what would be spot zoning and would be a redevelopment plan and put them together?
Well, initially we thought there were going to be 3 5 to 6 family homes. Right. And there is one like that directly to the north. And, the parking is in the rear. And, something like that would have been far more sympathetic to the district than to what looks to be garden apartments.
Well, we don't actually have a decision yet. Should it be 2 structures or should it be 3 structures? It might affect the parking or the driveway, but I'm not even at that point yet of being able to tell you.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Barton, is there any, past instances like this, Barton? Where they can go in. I call it spot zoning too. Redevelopment would be a block or 2 blocks. Spot zoning is just this one couple of lots.
Yeah, it's like 3 lots, 3 separate lots.
That's spot zoning.
There was one about 30 years ago, if you're familiar with Victoria Square.
Nope.
It's on East 7th Street, just east of Swains. And
yes, I know what you mean.
I remember when it was first proposed, it was way before the current ordinance. It was way before the current design standards. The plan was to just put what I would call garden apartments in there and put in a few decorative looking lampposts and try to say that that's historic. And that project, if you ever go in there now, it looks like it's falling apart at the seams. I don't know what the owners are going to do.
Well, you know what, Bill? I'm going to shed a little light on that. I've had a couple people call me about that, and they want to use all non-historic materials to update the project.
Well, that's an ordinance question because we make people preserve the kind of materials that are already there.
Are they in a district?
But what would be the point of that if what's there now is crappy because it was done before the current ordinance?
Well, right now they have wooden siding, things like that. That's not what they're proposing to come back in with.
Yeah, but it's ugly. I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's an example where you could point to it today and call it spot zoning.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Larry?
What's the status of the Jewetts in court?
The prosecutor in the municipal court, who happens to be the mayor of Orange, and guess who he's friends with, told us that he would talk to the judge about setting aside some time, because this is so different for them than anything they normally handle. And since then, I guess he has just not been motivated enough to get it done. And I'm reluctant to bother him because I'm in the position of a witness. So I reminded Andela a couple of weeks ago to try to put this through with whomever she normally deals with at the municipal court clerk's office, and I've seen nothing further. And I told her this already. If it looks like this will help, I could go right over their heads to the Union County assignment judge. I could ask for the case to be moved to a different town, or to just direct the prosecutor and the municipal judge to get on with it. So I'm reluctant to do that, but if this goes on more than another few days, I think it's time for me to do that. I really don't perceive any bad faith. It's just out of their ordinary. It's an unusual and, for them, difficult subject. And I'm there to explain it, but, you know, if he just can't be bothered with it, we'll have to push a little harder. The Jewetts came to us the other day with a request for a slight change in the things that we did approve, to go, their porch columns, to go from flat round to fluted, like the ones that are in the front, which are already fluted. And so that's a matter of the ARC deciding, do we have any problem with that? So we circulated it, and I went and informed them now, nope, that's no problem. Bart and I asked to just write up a slightly revised CA so that it refers to this. And they've actually gotten started over there. They've had materials delivered. I don't know if they've started with any carpentry work yet, but I think maybe this is going to turn out okay, that they're actually going forward with work. And
well, you know, they haven't done anything with the downspout that comes around the window. And my feeling is when they get in there and they're going to have to tear that whole gutter apart, that's the time you get them with the hi-hats, because you got to change it.
The hi-hats are a different problem.
No, but you know, I understand they're a different problem, Bill, but when they're in there fixing the Yankee gutter, which they have to do.
Yeah, that's the time, obviously.
Well,
I don't know how soon they're working on that. They seem to be more interested in getting the porch going, which is okay with me. But frankly, I'm happy they even came to us about this. It was a show of good faith that we have not always seen. So now let's see if it still looks that way.
I just think he was afraid he was going to get picked off again.
That may be, but you know, maybe we'll be lucky, and if not, we'll just have to keep on them. Okay, going. Anyone feel like moving to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
You bet.
You bet.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Safe.